And you know, he's played that many amounts of games now, 600 games. Tells you everything about Sergio Ramos, and he'll want to finish this season well as well for Zinedine Zidane. The players know that they've had a difficult couple of weeks, and they know that they now have to start afresh with Zidane. It is almost a fresh start, although everybody knows each other. Zinedine Zidane knows all the players. He knows what he wants from the players. It had been an easy transformation this week. He only had 4 days training with the team, and it was nice to see Zinedine Zidane back in the talking to the press yesterday as well about how he's going to do things from now on. And Sergio Ramos, of course, is going to be an integral part of that. And you can see the players there warming up in the tunnel. It's pretty warm already in the Bernabeu, but they'll be out there getting ready for the game in just a minute.
So much competition for a place in that starting 11. Well, let's take a look at Celta Vigo's starting 11 now for the game against Real Madrid. This afternoon at the Santiago Bernabeu, they are, of course, without Iago Aspas. They've had to do without him since December. He'd scored 10 league goals before that, and they really are missing him.
They are, but the thing about Iago Aspas is it's not just his goals, which he does provide a lot of goals in his attacking play, but he is like the captain on the pitch. Although he is a centre forward, he's got so much in his locker. He runs, he creates trouble, he creates problems on the pitch, all over the pitch, and he is a player that is a really big miss for Celta. He is coming back at the end of March, but they've gone on a terrible run since December, just winning 1 game in 12. And they rely on Maxi Gomez, who's got 9 goals, who isn't a bad replacement for Iago Aspas to get the goals up front. And then either side of him, they've got Boufal and Pione as well, who are both quick. And they'll be looking to try and get Real Madrid on the counter-attack, to defend well, to stay in the game and try and get forward and get goals.
Well, as you can see, the players are making their way out onto the pitch for the warm-up now. So let's head back to the Bernabeu. Phil, what a moment it will be when Zinedine Zidane walks out onto the pitch this afternoon. I bet the Madridistas are so excited.
There is definitely a sense of excitement here. It's already quite full. There's just a feel-good factor around the stadium. It helps that it's a very sunny and warm day. That always helps. But even if it wasn't, I think people would be really excited for this game, for the return of Zinedine Zidane. And it just feels right having him back. It felt like he's never been away. Seeing him taking training at Ciudad Real Madrid, seeing him taking press conference with such ease as he did yesterday. It just feels right. It's a perfect fit. So it is great to have the manager back. Obviously, there is a feel-good factor. Everybody's very pleased, everybody's very excited. But apart from the emotional aspect, the most important thing is the footballing aspect. So we have to see that feel-good factor, that excitement transferred into play on the pitch. And we have to see Real Madrid put in a good performance and get 3 points today. Otherwise, all that feel-good energy from the last few days will have been more or less for nothing. So I think the manager will be really aware of the fact that it is very, very important to enjoy today, but also to get a win and to put in a good performance to carry on the momentum, that feel-good momentum that we've felt over the last few days.
Zinedine Zidane's last game in charge at the Santiago Bernabeu, Phil, was a 6-0 win against the same opponents, against Celta Vigo. Now, 308 days later, they'll be hoping for a similar result.
Yeah, there's a nice symmetry to it, isn't there, with Gareth Bale and Isco were both on the score sheet that day in that 6-0 victory. Real Madrid have got a really good record, by the way, at home to Celta Vigo in La Liga. They've won each of the last 6 visits from the Galicians in this stadium. They've scored 23 goals and they've conceded just 2. So, yeah, that 6-0 against Celta Vigo in Zidane's last game in charge here was one of the best results that we've seen here in the league over the last few years. Certainly one of the most high-scoring games for Real Madrid. Also, perhaps a nice bit of symmetry as well, the fact that Zidane's first game in charge of Real Madrid back on the 9th of January 2016 was here against the other side from Galicia, Deportivo La Coruña, Celta Vigo's sworn enemies. Real Madrid winning 5-0 on that day, with Karim Benzema and Gareth Bale getting on the score sheet as well. So yeah, a nice bit of symmetry in terms of his first game in charge and his last game in charge here. So let's see if we see another high-scoring win like those 2 matches were.
And it was mentioned, of course, yesterday in the press conference with Zinedine Zidane. He was actually reminded of this fact, that in his first season at this stage, with 11 games to go, Real Madrid were 12 points from the top of the league. He came in January, he turned things around in the Champions League, but people forget he also turned things around in La Liga, and Real Madrid just finished 1 point off the top at the end of that season, made up a lot of ground on the top sides then. Finished just 1 point from winning the title in his first season as well. They're in a similar position now. Who's to say that if they go on a run and win lots of games that they can't be fighting up there at the top again before the end of the season and make things difficult at least for the two sides ahead of them.
And their last league game saw a 4-1 win against Valladolid last weekend. They had to come back from behind. Never ideal conceding first, Phil. They'll want to go out all guns blazing this afternoon and make sure they get that crucial first goal.
Yeah, they will. And just to pick up from what Dermot was saying, obviously that incredible end to the 2015-2016 season, which was Zinedine Zidane's first in charge here. As you said, a fabulous winning run. Real Madrid won each of their last 12 matches in La Liga. No team had ever done that before. Real Madrid are the first team to have done that. So, with that in mind, who's to say that the league title race isn't over? If they can do that again, well, there could be mathematically a league title race. I remember in 2016 nobody thought that there was going to be a title race. Everybody thought it was already wrapped up, and it went down to the final day of the season. Real Madrid went to Deportivo La Coruña and Barcelona were playing Granada. Barcelona won, but Real Madrid made them work for it, work very hard, and that is what we want from the rest of the season. If we can't win the league title, okay, mathematically it's unlikely that we win the league title, but the idea is to make whoever does win it work as hard as possible for that league title, and that's what Zinedine Zidane is going to make sure that his players are very, very aware of. And crucially, perhaps, a lot of these players, the vast majority of this squad, remember that. They remember that everybody thought, no, there's no league title race in 2016, and it went down to the final day. So we're in a similar position, a very similar position now. Real Madrid won last week, so that's one game. There are 11 matches left, so if they win all of those games, it'll be 12 victories at the end of the season again. Let's see if history can repeat itself.
And we have to remember what Zinedine Zidane achieved in 2 years and 5 months as first-team coach. He won 9 pieces of silverware, and as you just said, Phil, with the majority of the current squad.
Well, he won everything. He won absolutely everything apart from the Copa del Rey, which he still remembers. He still remembers that very keenly. He remembers in his final season he got knocked out by Leganés here. It was a real surprise, and that was a real blow for him because, as we said, it's the only title he didn't win here. So he remembers that, and he certainly will want to win the Copa del Rey next season. But yeah, he won absolutely everything here. There was nothing left for him to win. He achieved incredible legendary status here, even more so. Obviously, he was already a legend as a player, but now it's very difficult to top what he did. But he's come back, and a huge amount of credit for Zinedine Zidane coming back after achieving what he achieved. He could have gone away and never really come back to Real Madrid. Obviously, in the back of his mind, he would have wanted to because he's been linked to this club for so long. But the most logical thing were him to be remembered as the guy who won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, and that's it. The club needed him now. The president rang him and said, please come back. And he took that on board, and because he loves this club and he's got a really good relationship with the president as well, he put perhaps a selfish need to go out on a blaze of glory to one side, and he came back. So he's potentially sacrificing his legacy to come back here and try and achieve more greatness with Real Madrid. And that is an incredible act of Madridismo from Zinedine Zidane. If anybody perhaps ever doubted his Madridismo, which I don't think they did, but that act there is incredibly selfless and just shows the love that he has for this team and for this institution. So yes, let's see how we get on this season, but watch out next season as well, because Zidane will be really, really focused on building a new project. This is the second era for Zinedine Zidane. The first was absolutely brilliant, but he's an incredibly competitive and hard-working man, and now that he's come back, now that he's putting his legacy on the line, he'll want to make sure that his second era is as successful, if not more successful, than his first.
And the players have only had 3 coaching sessions with Zinedine Zidane, but they're already familiar with his coaching methods, Phil, which must help things and speed up the process and help the players adjust.
Absolutely. They know what he wants from them. He knows what he can demand from them. They will feel very comfortable with him. There will be a good feeling at training session, and we brought to you training live on Real Madrid TV on Friday, and you could see that the players were feeling very comfortable, feeling very happy. They were pleased, and Zidane himself said it in the pre-match press conference. He said the players are happy. They feel happy. So if the players are happy, the idea is that they play well. We've said it many times here on Real Madrid TV. We need the players to be feeling good and to enjoy themselves, because when you have a squad as talented as this Real Madrid side, half of it is mental, because we know how technically gifted they are and the talent and the capacity that they have to play. But they need to be right mentally. If they're right mentally, they can produce incredible performances. So they're feeling good so far under Zinedine Zidane. Let's see what they do out on the pitch today.
And I think just coming on from what Phil said there, that in the press conference yesterday, a lot of the message from Zinedine Zidane was talk about motivation, talk about excitement from the players, from himself as well, about this new era. And in a way, it was a message. He said, he used the word a lot of in Spanish, ganas, which is the players are really excited, the players are really motivated to take on these final 11 games. And in a way, it's a kind of a message to the players as well, because they will know that although some of them have been here a long time and under Zinedine Zidane in the past, and some of them will want to continue to be with Zinedine Zidane in the future projects going into next season, they will know that they are playing at the moment for their place in the squad next season, and that is the motivation for all of them to give 100%, to do as much as they possibly can to do well in these final 11 games. And that was the real key underlying message from Zinedine Zidane, quite cleverly put over as well in the press conference that he gave yesterday, his first press conference back before a match. And here we are today, ready for his first game.
And he did say that he's seen Celta Vigo playing some good football this season. But Phil, they haven't won a game since early February. They really need to get out of the relegation zone. What can we expect from them this afternoon?
Well, we spoke about Iago Aspas and how dependent they are on their captain, and as Dermot rightly pointed out, it's not just his goals, but it's everything. Yeah, his movement is fantastic. He's such a ferocious competitor as well, so he is a really, really big loss. But Celta are not as bad a team as their position would suggest, certainly not going forward. Defensively, they've had huge problems, and while they haven't necessarily conceded the highest number of goals in the division at the moment, at times this season they have looked like the worst team defensively. It's certainly very, very poorly organised at the back. New manager Fran Escobar has been brought in, I think, to try and shore things up at the back. He is a manager who generally tends to have his side well organised defensively and the back four well drilled, so that will be of paramount importance for him, trying to shore up what has been a really, really leaky defence. But Celta, just to underline how dependent they are on Aspas, going into the game where he got injured, which was the final game of 2018, they were 9th. They were 9th and had one eye on European football. Now they're 18th. They've dropped 9 places. They've lost 9 of their last 11 games. He has barely featured this year. He came back in one match, but he got injured again and he hasn't featured since. So 9 defeats in 11 matches. That is relegation form. And last weekend they slipped into the relegation zone for the first time this season. They were beaten 1-0 at home by Real Betis. They're in a really, really difficult position. And the last thing they would want is to come here to the Bernabeu when they're in such a bad run, and also to face a Real Madrid side who have been energised by the return of Zinedine Zidane. So things are not looking good for Celta Vigo. They've got some really, really big games between now and the end of the season. That said, I think going forward, they are capable of causing any side in the division problems. We mentioned Maxi Gomez. He's the number 9 for them today. He's going to be leading the line. He's big, he's strong, he's very physical. His goal scoring has dropped off in recent weeks. He hasn't been potentially as prolific, and he hasn't necessarily stepped up and filled in the gap left by Iago Aspas, but he's certainly capable of putting himself about. And I both like Pione Sisto and Sofiane Boufal as well. Boufal in particular, I think, has possibly been their best player going forward, certainly in the absence of Iago Aspas. He's a really tricky customer out on the wing, so they'll have to watch out for them going forward. But I think at the back they are really, really weak defensively, and there should be plenty of opportunities for Real Madrid to get amongst the goals once more today.
Yes, just picking up on what Phil said, Celta Vigo, it's just one of those clubs that this season you would say perhaps too good to go down, but they're right in the in the battle there now, and it's hotting up at the bottom because Huesca have come back into it, and there is no team certain for the drop, so everyone is battling for their lives. 3 of them have to go, and Celta at the moment are looking like one of the more likely candidates unless they can change their form. I think today they will get the ball out wide when they can try and counter-attack Real Madrid and get it out to Boufal and Zidane on the wings to try and feed Maxi Gomez. But if Real Madrid can get that early goal, get ahead, make life difficult for Celta, then of course the Santiago Bernabeu on a day like this with a new coach, with Zinedine Zidane coming back, looking for a triumphant start to a new era, it can be a horrible place for a team that's struggling. So hopefully that's the way it goes.
What a week it has been for Real Madrid, with Zinedine Zidane returning, and also a new signing, 21-year-old Eder Militao, a Portuguese. He's currently playing for Porto. He's a Brazilian defender. He's been named the best defender in the Portuguese league for the last 5 months, and he's already made his full international debut for Brazil at just 21 years old. Phil, so exciting for next season.
Absolutely, and he is really a player for the future. He signed a 6-year contract as well, but he could also be a player for the present. And reading some assessments of Eder Militao from Portuguese journalists who have watched a lot of him, the consensus was everybody knew this guy was very good. Having seen him play just a couple of games right from the start, everybody across the board in Portugal knew this is a serious player. So Real Madrid have swooped to sign a really promising young centre-back. Of course, he's only 21. He will have time to develop and to come through. We do have some very impressive centre-backs as well. There will be competition for places, but Eder Militao is a really exciting signing. Can't claim to have seen too much of him myself this season, but having seen what Portuguese journalists have written about him and suggested, this is a brilliant signing. For a lot of money, yes, but if he turns out to be a signing for the next 6, 7, 8 years, then it's not a lot of money at all. It looks like it could be a really good investment. So yeah, excited to see Eder Militao, what he can bring to the table from next season. Of course, is in a Porto side who are doing well this season as well, both domestically and in Europe. So we'll be keeping an eye on what Eder Militao does for the rest of the season, knowing that next season we're going to have him here at the Bernabeu.
And it's all part of Real Madrid's strategy, really, to keep buying in promising young players and to give them time to develop, and to bring them into this side and keep creating an international team of young players who can go on and win things in the future. And it is exciting to see Militao being announced already. He's just turned up this season in Europe. He's adapted very well to the Portuguese league. He's got a couple of goals. He looks very strong in the air as well. Looks very adept at bringing the ball out of defence. Very versatile defender as well. So yeah, he obviously has a lot about him. And Real Madrid have made the plunge quite early and have signed him up for next season.
The players just coming to the end of their warm-up, as you can see them taking some shots on goal here. So, Phil, 5 changes to the starting 11, and a really good opportunity for the likes of Isco, the likes of Marco Asensio, even Keylor Navas, to prove themselves this afternoon.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't necessarily think they have to prove themselves to the manager, because the manager knows what they're capable of. So they just need to come in and enjoy being in the starting 11 and to make sure that they put in a good performance. And I think Zinedine Zidane will pick players on merit. Obviously, he knows a lot of these players. He's got some other players to find out about. He hasn't coached, for example, Álvaro Odriozola. He was a new signing, so he'll see him for the first time in a game this season. But yeah, it's a great chance for everybody in the whole squad. Whenever a new manager comes in, it's a chance. It's a new chance. It's a clean slate. And it's a clean slate for Real Madrid as well. As we say, we have to almost think as if the season starts now for Real Madrid. 11 games left. If you win all 11, you're going to give yourself a chance of being competitive right until the end of the season. So, if you like, the season starts now. We've got 11 games to go. Let's see what we can do.
Zinedine Zidane was asked in the press conference yesterday a lot about a lot of these players, about Marcelo, about Isco, about Keylor Navas. He was asked about these players. He didn't give any clues away to what his team was going to be, but he's come in and kind of put his fist on the table and said, you know, these are my men. He has been forced into changing the team around due to players being out as well. But he's playing with players who've been part of squads for him that have won 3 European Cup, so it's not as if he's taking a chance on any of these players. Keylor Navas has been waiting in the wings all season in La Liga, so to speak, and he gets his chance to come back and prove that he can still do it at the highest level for Real Madrid. Isco the same, and Marcelo, well, he's won everything there is to win with the club, so again, no real risks there. Players that Zinedine Zidane knows, and players that he's very comfortable with picking in his team.
Well, it was 4-2.
It was also interesting to hear, sorry, just to say, it was also interesting to hear him say at the pre-match press conference a lot of questions about those individual players like Isco, like Marcelo, a lot of journalists trying to get a story out of Zinedine Zidane. All he's interested in is in the football. He just said, listen, we're here to work hard, we're here to play football. I'm not interested in stories, I'm not interested in headlines, we're just going to go and do our jobs. And it was really interesting to see that kind of approach. No nonsense from Zinedine Zidane. You go out, you play your football, we'll work hard on the training pitch and we'll see what happens. And he is very good at batting away those questions from journalists, Zinedine Zidane, which is, let's face it, a big part of being Real Madrid manager.
It was 4-2 at Balaidos in the reverse fixture, Phil, and 6-0 in this fixture last season. What are we expecting this afternoon?
Well, in theory, we are expecting goals. Celta have conceded more goals against Real Madrid than against any other side in La Liga, 242. Let's go for some more goals for Real Madrid. Remember, Real Madrid have got the second best defensive record at home in La Liga this season. They've only conceded 8 goals in 13 matches here. So we'll go for another clean sheet and we'll say 3-0 to Real Madrid.
Thanks, Phil. See you in the mix zone after the game. So, Phil, expecting a 3-0 victory for Real Madrid this afternoon. Would be a good scoreline.
It would be a good scoreline, and yeah, I think what Zinedine Zidane is just going to say to his players is go out and play with freedom. That's what he tries to do. That's what he did. That's what made him so successful in his two and a bit seasons here, 2.5 seasons, if you like, where he had so much success. He had so much talent at his fingertips, and all he did was the simple job of saying, go out, play like this. We've seen him give tactical talks in documentaries that we've seen about the Champions League finals. He doesn't complicate things. He just knows, he trusts his players. He knows he's got good players, and he trusts them. And that's what he'll be doing today. He'll be saying to go out, try and play attacking football, try and get your freedom back, try and play with a smile on your face, and try and attack Celta and get some goals.
It's match day 28 of La Liga, so let's take a look now at the 2 matches that have already taken place in the 8 left to play this weekend. On Friday, Real Sociedad drew 1-1 with Levante. Earlier on today, Huesca lost 3-1 to Alaves. Real Madrid, Celta kicking off in under 15 minutes' time at the Santiago Bernabeu. Then Atletico are away to Athletic. That's at 6:30. And Leganés host Girona at 8:45. Then on Sunday at noon, Eibar at home to Valladolid. At 4:15, Sevilla away to Espanyol. Then 2 6:30 kickoffs, Valencia at home to Getafe, and Rayo Vallecano visit Villarreal. Then at 8:45, Real Betis host Barcelona. So still 11 matches left to play, still a long way to go, and as we've seen in La Liga this season, anything can happen.
It can, and all Real Madrid can do is keep winning their games and trying to put pressure on the 2 sides ahead of them. Of course, they'd love to win the league. Mathematically, as we said, Phil said before, perhaps that's a long shot now, but they also want to get into second ahead of local rivals Atletico Madrid, so they'll be pushing those 2 all the way. They're both playing later this weekend, Atletico Madrid playing just after Real Madrid. All Real Madrid can do is go out, beat Celta Vigo today, have a good start to the reign of Zinedine Zidane, and as he said, go and try and win those 11 games between now and the end of the season.
That's all we have time for. Thank you for watching Madridistas. A reminder, you can join us straight after the game for our post-match analysis. We'll see you then. But for now, from myself, Dermot and Phil, it's adios.